Good afternoon, dear viewers of the Ruslan Belov channel. In today's episode, we will examine in detail the development of the situation on the Ukrainian theater of military operations as of the 13th of February 2026. The day has been filled with key events, so let's proceed directly to the analysis. First in our review will be the Zaporizhia front sector, which continues to generate numerous different reports. As for the western Zaporizhia direction, the latest information about this section dates back to the 11th of February. The essence of the received data came down to the fact that Ukrainian forces managed, conditionally speaking, to advance through the disputed territory and reach the main defensive line stretching between Stepnogorsk and Pavlovka, specifically up to this line. After the indicated moment, fresh data is absent. Some analysts of pro-Russian orientation claim that Ukrainian forces were unable to restore full control over this territory. Russian units maintain their presence here. Intense firefights are being conducted at minimal distances, while the Russian side holds the occupied lines. Consequently, we mark this zone as disputed until the moment of complete clarification of the situation. Moving to the city of Orakov. Today, quite remarkable video materials appeared from this area. According to the description of the author of the footage, the video captured shelling of the northern quarters of Orakov and the adjacent agglomeration using heavy flamethrower systems Solntsepek. One significant moment deserves special attention. If we analyze the distance from the point of strike in the area of Preobrazhenka to the nearest positions of Russian troops, for example, from the territory of Kopani, it turns out to be approximately 15 kilometers. This distance is relatively safe for the use of such weapons. At the same time, standard modifications of Solntsepek do not provide such range. Hence, there is a very high probability that the Russian command transferred the newest TOS-3 Solntsepek systems to the Orakov direction, possessing an extended strike radius of up to 15 kilometers. Probably these flamethrower complexes are now operating in this section, which undoubtedly can significantly increase the offensive capabilities of Russian forces. In the eastern Zaporizhia direction, intense combat encounters continue along the line Hulyai-Pole, Staroukrainka, Verkhnya Tersa, as well as Hulyai-Pole, Zaliznikne, with subsequent spread westward toward Hulyai-Polske. An extensive volume of video materials is coming to the network, demonstrating fire impact by Russian units on Ukrainian positions. The Russian command seeks to break through the front line in this section and advance further in the direction of Orakov, in the vicinity of which, in the foreseeable future, within the coming months, a concentration of main combat operations is expected. However, today there is a Ramstein meeting, as well as a security conference. Therefore, the Ukrainian side continues either offensive operations or not, either a real offensive on the ground or an offensive exclusively in the information space of various telegram channels and chats. It is difficult to determine precisely. But today, information continues to arrive that Ukrainian forces are increasing pressure north of Hulyai-Pole. I draw your attention to the fact that several positions are marked here, and they are located quite deep in territories under the control of the Russian Federation. Today, a number of pro-Ukrainian and neutral cartographic sources report advancement in the southern direction toward the settlements of Kalinivka, Verbove, Stepov, Novoalexandrivka, as well as a breakthrough of the front line in the areas of Pryluki and Dobropilya. This information is mainly distributed by pro-Ukrainian and neutral cartographic services. At least in the first half of the day, the situation was described exactly this way. If we summarize all the data on the cartographic scheme, then, according to various assessments and expert opinions, Ukrainian units potentially managed to penetrate from the northern direction approximately to a certain depth and on a specific bridgehead. And as for the western direction, approximately in the area of Pryluki and Dobropilya, possibly even a crossing of the Haicha River occurred. These are exactly the schemes that individual pro-Ukrainian neutral cartographers publish today. Nevertheless, at the present moment in open sources, there is extremely insufficient video confirmation that could verify this information. It would seem that this could be ignored, not focused on, passed by. Since Ramstein meetings are happening again, rallies, significant funding needs to be attracted, and consequently all these operations, if they are taking place in this direction, pursue a single goal: to demonstrate the combat readiness of Ukrainian armed forces and secure additional financing for subsequent stages. However, approximately after noon, individual pro-Russian experts indirectly and partially confirmed the data about breakthroughs. From this moment, the situation began to acquire a rather acute and already practically inevitable character of development. That is, according to data from individual pro-Russian, very pro-Russian and reliable sources, the Ukrainian side indeed organized an offensive operation from the north, from Velika Mikhailivka in the southern direction, as well as from Dobropilya and Priluki in the eastern direction. At the same time, we observe that the corrections provided by pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian sources differ, and significantly, in the direction of vectors, in the area of breakthroughs and other parameters. But overall, such information already exists, which represents a rather serious signal. However, the most fundamental and important moment lies in the fact that, despite possible discrepancies in the description of these bridgeheads, differences in breakthrough vectors, somewhere further north, somewhere further south, that is, obviously, some common understanding exists. We observe, whether on pro-Russian maps, on neutral pro-Ukrainian maps, or on our maps, everyone sees the general plan of the Ukrainian command. This is a breakthrough in the direction of the settlement of Privolny, toward the settlement of Uspensovka from both the western and, of course, the northern directions. These two cutting strikes, I repeat, possibly, are currently being delivered by Ukrainian units, whose goal is, as can be seen, taking probably into some encirclement Russian units that are currently deployed in this section. Today, the Vostok grouping of forces and the military department of the Russian Federation also indirectly confirm the presence of serious actions by Ukrainian armed forces in this section. This can be judged, and conclusions can be drawn based on the report of the Ministry of Defense, according to which Ukrainian forces in this direction over the past day suffered simply catastrophic losses, dozens of units of combat equipment, and so on. As a rule, such losses are not recorded in this section. That is, to a certain extent, the military department confirms that the activity of Ukrainian forces here significantly exceeds the activity that we observed in any other time period in this direction, even during the advance of the Russian army from Velika Novosilka to Huliaipol. We will continue to track the development of this situation. It is extremely important how this offensive will develop tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, after the completion of all these security conferences, all these Ramstein meetings, whether the offensive will be continued or the Ukrainian army will stop and retreat to the initial lines. Therefore, it is premature to draw final conclusions. Next, we move to the Dobropilya front section. Here, the overwhelming majority of experts agree that the situation is maximally stabilized. Neither the Russian nor the Ukrainian sides are conducting active combat operations. Everything is relatively calm. The front line is stable. The only location where map corrections periodically occur is the settlement of Hryshyn. In the area of Hryshyn, strikes are systematically delivered to settlements located in the rear, but there are no frontline corrections here. And, by the way, a very interesting detail. Just the other day, the following thought visited me. Despite all these massive strikes on energy infrastructure, from the Ukrainian forces on oil refining facilities of the Russian Federation, all these combat operations in the area of Huliaipol, and quite randomly it was remembered, what is happening in the Dnipro direction, in the Dnipro section. And today, a very interesting video was published, these frames. And as can be seen, a drone strike. The author of this material claims that the strike is relatively fresh. And in these frames, we observe a strike by the 98th Airborne Division on positions of Ukrainian armed forces on the territory of the city of Kherson. This indicates that this airborne division was transferred to this area. This is not its initial zone of responsibility. Back in the summer, this unit was located in a completely different section of the front. And here, naturally, a question arises. Was it transferred here to replenish losses? Or is something possibly being prepared in the Dnipro-Kherson direction as well? Well, these are such reflections aloud. Next, our attention turns to the Konstantinovka front sector. From this direction, minor changes on maps are published. Today, pro-Ukrainian cartographic resources expand the disputed territory in the southwestern part of the city of Konstantinovka. According to data from pro-Ukrainian sources, Russian units managed to penetrate literally to the southwestern peripheral areas of the settlement, however without direct entry into the territory of the city itself. In parallel, intensified activity in the transfer of additional forces to the southern part is noted. Apparently, a serious offensive has begun from the Russian Federation in the direction of southern Konstantinovka. And so, accordingly, in connection with this, the Ukrainian side is also intensively transferring reserves to the south to stabilize the situation, not allow Russian units to consolidate. That is, at the present moment, a battle is ongoing, and apparently the Russian side sets before itself the task of consolidating in the southwestern part, forming a certain bridgehead from this side of the city, including on the territory of this industrial facility and subsequently gradually, through quarters, micro-districts, streets, advancing closer to the north. But we observe combat clashes still at the initial stage, in the Sloviansk direction without corrections. Here, however, there are significant changes, and they concern predominantly Lyman. East of Sloviansk, there are no corrections, but in the area of Lyman, there are significant changes on the maps. This is how the map looked on the 12th of February, and already on the 13th of February, significant corrections are being made both in the northern part of Drobyshev and in the area of the pocket located between Stavki and Lyman. I remind you that here in the pocket, there are still probably a significant number of units that are trying to hold the defense. However, we observe that despite the positions, despite this small section of the front, we see that the Russian army is gradually compressing this pocket. And already, probably in the foreseeable future, both bridgeheads located in the area of Stavki, as well as Lyman, will connect. And then advancement will be organized at higher tempos, with more intensive pressure in the direction of the northern and western outskirts of the settlement. That is, further encirclement of the city of Lyman around the perimeter will be carried out, including the settlement of Drobyshev. That is, in the near future, Russian units will apparently be concentrated on this pocket between Drobyshev and Lyman, as well as over the territory between Lyman and Stavki. And in connection with this, and in connection with the intensification of combat operations in this section, also the Ukrainian side began to actively transfer reinforcements across the Siversky Donets River using light equipment. Here, Russian FPV drone operators are already constantly on duty and control the perimeter. And as soon as another unit of equipment approaches the Siversky Donets River, it is immediately destroyed by drones. That is, work is underway to disrupt logistics at the moment of active assault of the city itself. In the Kupiansk direction without corrections. In the northern directions quite actively. In the last few months, both drone systems and assault units have been working intensively here, and strikes are delivered by missiles on points of temporary deployment. That is, it is quite active here. Despite the fact that all experts without exception agree that the Kharkiv direction remains for a sufficiently long period of time a kind of secondary direction, based on those video materials that come from this section, a conclusion can be made that probably the Kharkiv direction will still not be secondary. There are very many strikes here by Lancets, drones on equipment and positions, and corrections on the ground are constantly recorded. The Russian army is gradually advancing. It is also necessary to note that on the night of the 13th of February, the Ukrainian side and the Russian Federation again exchanged massive strikes. The military department of Ukraine reports that the Russian Federation used 155 aerial targets, including 154 drones and one Iskander missile. Strikes were mainly delivered on Odessa, on port and energy infrastructure. Information is coming that some objects were maximally damaged, possibly even destroyed. On the other hand, the Ukrainian side delivered massive strikes on the Volgograd region. The Ministry of Defense of Russia reported the destruction of 43 drones over this region. Presumably, the targets were the Kapustin Yar test range and ammunition depots in the area of Volgograd and Kotluban. Ukrainian sources claim the launch of 6 Flamingo cruise missiles, and the Russian department reported the interception of only 5. Based on this mathematics, one missile could have reached its target. The Russian Federation, meanwhile, continues exercises of strategic aviation, conducting preparation for further massive strikes. Now about the political arena. Zelensky made many belligerent statements, declaring that he would prefer not to conclude any agreement rather than accept a bad one. He places responsibility for solving problems on Trump and hints that he has little time left. The fact is that on the 3rd of November, 2026, midterm elections will be held in the United States Congress. Republicans now have a majority, which facilitates Trump's actions, but these elections can change the balance of power. Trump understands that the conflict on Ukrainian territory cannot be resolved by this date. Sources report that the US president will soon announce his withdrawal from the negotiation process, blaming both Russia and Ukraine for this. Now Trump is maximally focused on Iran, trying to score points for his party before the elections. Today, information is coming about the transfer of another carrier group toward Iran. When it approaches the Persian Gulf, the total power of the US grouping will exceed that which we observed in May-June 2025 during strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. The most important event today is the meeting in the Ramstein format, where additional assistance to Ukraine in the amount of $3 billion was announced. Since the beginning of the conflict in this format, Ukraine has been provided with more than $35 billion. These funds will be enough to continue combat operations at least until the US congressional elections. Immediately after Ramstein, the Munich Security Conference will take place with the participation of Marco Rubio. To summarize, the Munich Conference, the Ramstein meeting, the improvement of climatic conditions, all this forces the Ukrainian side to demonstrate something along the front line. What exactly the armed forces of Ukraine are trying to demonstrate during all these events, this is what we examined in today's episode. That's all, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and all the best to you.